you originally look at the deal, it looks really good. And there's not some glaring in your face problem like I talked about before, where, this thing actually looks like it might have some legs, to the point where, on this particular deal, we're ready to fly out there and do due diligence. Okay. Now I understand, people bring me deals, I'll vet them, and then I'm pretty quick to fly to the area. If it looks like a deal, I'll get on a plane and go there. I think we did a show too one time, Heather. Didn't we do a show one time where I talked about the one I flew out there and I was like, what the hell is this?
Yes.
Places had 3 feet of water in the basement. I'm like, what is this exactly? Why would you waste my time? Anyway, sometimes I'm a little too quick to fly places. But on this one, we actually didn't fly there. The deal looked pretty good. This deal was already under contract. You guys had it under contract, and they were, I think, 2 weeks from they were about a week away from their money going hard. And no. Their money was hard. They were about 2 weeks away from supposed to close.
Wow. And
the bank that had given them the financing at the last minute said, y'all need some balance sheet help. So for those of you who don't know, on commercial deals, you generally need, you generally need some experience. Okay. B, you generally need at least as much net worth as what you're borrowing. And then you also need cash reserves in the amount of about 1 year's worth of, your payments. And on, if you're new to the game, that can be a tall order.
Yeah.
So this bank at the last minute says, hey, look, you guys, in order to get this done, you need some balance sheet help, which means y'all don't have enough net worth for the bank to be comfortable to give you this loan. Right. So they start reaching out to people who could be balance sheet partners. And I originally looked at the deal and I was like, okay, yeah, if this all checks out, then this looks like a pretty good deal. Happy to be a balance sheet partner on this, with a couple of exceptions. The first one for me, and this is a personal Ron thing, I'm not doing personally guaranteed debt anymore moving forward. I've eliminated it.
Talk about what that means.
So there's what's called, and I didn't know this for a long time, other than for IRAs. I knew for IRAs you could get non-recourse debt. And what non-recourse debt is that they're lending on the property only. They're not lending on your, there's no personal guarantee from Ron on the property. So if property fails, unless I committed fraud, they take the property and that's it. They can't come after my personal assets. Okay, so non-recourse debt, typically it's a little bit more expensive. They typically require a little bit more down, and they do require you to be a little bit more financially healthy. But for me to join the deal, that was a requirement. He did not have that kind of debt from this particular bank that had kind of punked him at the end. So we went back to the seller, asked them for an extension, and I sent him over to my lender. Now, I hadn't vetted the deal. We had just started this, right? So I hadn't vetted the deal that much. And my lender starts firing over questions, and the questions that my lender is firing over, because there was a Google folder with, tons of documents in it, tons. I hadn't sorted through all that stuff because this was kind of a, hey, let's get into this, and then I'll go do due diligence. I'll have my asset manager pour through it. We'll get on site. We'll go through the units, all this stuff. Now, supposedly these guys had already done the site work and everything like that. They had already a budget for capital expenditures and all this stuff. Most of the stuff was done, or so I thought. Now,
dun dun dun.
No dog or disrespect to these guys. They just didn't know a few different things. right? So lender starts firing over questions, and I start to see a pattern in the questions coming over. I'm like, oh, okay, we got problems. So I immediately called up the asset manager and I said, hey, look, we need to start digging through these financials like right now. Yeah, because we're kind of under the gun. And these guys have got like $50,000 hard down on this property now, right? So they back out, they lose 50 grand at this point. So I'm trying to help. So we're going through the financials. First thing we realize after we start going through the financials and we start looking at rent comps and we start looking at the different things is that the rent comps aren't lining up exactly like they should. There's not really that much of a history of rubs. So we're trying to unwind that. At the same time, my asset manager calls me back and says, hey, I've been working with these financials. Something wasn't lining up. So I looked and they're on accrual. They're not cash. And I said, oh, okay. Well, can we just email them and ask them for cash and see if there's a substantial difference? She's like, well, I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a substantial difference. Because I guarantee you some of the money that they've booked in here for accrual never actually came in. So if you don't understand the difference between accrual and cash basis accounting is what most people know. It's the money came in this month, I'm booking it this month, the bills went out this month, I'm booking it this month, this is what I've got left over, this is what actually happened. Accrual accounting is where if it was supposed to happen this month, then I just enter it as if it happened this month. And when the money comes in, then I balance it out. That's a horrible description. But in this case, they would book money that was due, and then they would put it on the accounts receivable, and it's showing up as if they received the money. When in reality, if you look at the rent roll shows how much money is sitting in accounts receivable not collected. So originally we went from I think it was a 97% occupied building, still is 97% occupied building, which works for, a Freddie Mac loan. Well, and that's what we were going for, right? Some kind of an agency debt. But the economic occupancy of the property turned out to be something like 74% because they had massive amounts of accounts receivable that hadn't paid. And of course, if you look at the financials, only part of the financials, the profit and loss, looks like everything is fantastic. But in reality, it's not fantastic. And the statement of cash flows would show you that, where the cash that's coming in and the cash that's going out didn't match what the profit and loss was showing. And it was not a small difference. It was a pretty sizable difference. So the contract price all of a sudden doesn't work at all. We were, when I called these guys back and told them, what we actually ended up having to do was get their login to their software and start to rebuild their financials because it was really sloppily done. It wasn't right. And I think that the owners actually didn't know, which is scary. So if you're an owner, you need to know this stuff. Like when you look at your financials, you need to know what the heck you're looking at. So the difference ended up being like a $1.5 million in price where we needed to be.
Wow.
So I called off the site visit before we could try to figure out what exactly is happening and see if these guys even wanted to play ball.
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure out whether or not these guys want to play ball. It took us a couple of weeks to repair their financials and then present this to them and say, hey, look, here's what you gave us. which is completely inaccurate. Here's what is accurate. Here's where we really are. And based on the cap rate that we offered, this is where the price needs to be. But that was one of the problems. Okay. So if you're ever looking at an operating memorandum and they've put the T12, which is the profit and loss for the last 12 months, and it says accrual at the top, you need to ask some other questions.
Interesting.
Might be fine. Might be nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Might also be hiding a bunch of stuff, because accrual can hide stuff. And the accounting can be done right and it still hides stuff. In this case, it was done wrong and it was hiding stuff. So anyway, really, really not good.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think the cool stuff about that is finding those loopholes. You can look for how you can, number one, like you said, get a better deal, right? And it's giving you a lower purchase price potentially. And then making sure that there's no surprises after closing. I mean, spending some extra time. You spend a lot of time in the books. So does your asset manager. So.
Yeah, she's amazing.